Hey, this is Thin Duke, and I'm going to be going over some mid-game development stuff as well as how to account and make the most efficient army selection possible. So what I mean by this is basically you have a choice early game. You have three primary units. Those are the spearman, swordsman, archer, axe fighter, light cavalry, and mounted archer. Let me do it in this village so that I have more options. Okay, so the thing is as far as defense goes, the swordsman is by far the best defensive unit. His defense against axe fighters is 55. I mean, the only real infantry unit that anybody's going to attack you with is an axe fighter, and they have 45 offense. He has 55, so he can easily take him down. So swordsmen are very good to have around. However, their cavalry defense is horrible, and therefore you need spearmen to counterbalance this. Okay, so the spearmen have 45 defense against cavalry. That's good. So you want to have, I would say, primarily mostly swordsmen, but you do want a lot of spearmen to back them up, because if they hit you with some light cavalry, and I mean light cavalry will just shred through swordsmen really quick, so you need to make sure that you cover that base as well. The archers are basically just to counter the mounted archers, but they what is it? They also help with cavalry. So light cavalry, they're not quite as good as the spearmen, but they can still take down some cavalry as well. So the primary reason you want to get archers is just to counterbalance these mounted archers, and these are very strong, efficient units. However, they are a bit expensive in terms of lumber, and also a thing you need to really consider. This is extremely important for your offensive units, is you need to think about the provisions and how many provisions it takes. Mounted archer takes 5 provisions. An axe fighter takes 1. Okay? So think about this. That means 5 times 60, that's 300. 5 times 30, that's 150. And then 5 times 40, that's 200. So 300, 150, 200 for 5 provisions. That is actually more expensive by far than what you're having to pay for the mounted archer. In addition to that, this one gives you 150 combat strength for the cost of 5 provisions. How about the axe fighter? For 5 provisions, you're getting 45 times 5, which would be 230. So you're getting 230 combat strength to do that. So how many sword fighters? Sword fighters are the best thing to combat against the axe fighter. The axe fighter is the strongest offensive unit by far, just due to the fact that his provision requirement is so low. You can stack them the most. And so swordsman is the natural counter to that. 55. So let's say if to defend against 4 or 5 axemen, I would need another 5 swordsmen. So if I got 4, then it would be 55 times 4, which would be 220. So that would fall 10 short of the axemen. So they would lose on a head-on, but if you had the wall bonus, it's about equal. Or I mean, the wall and the defensive, those things, the modifiers, they account for a lot as well. So you need to think about that. But basically, another question is, the swordsmen, they're the best defending units, but they cost a lot of iron, okay? So the biggest issue with the swordsmen is the iron requirement. Proportionally, the unit with the lowest iron requirement is the mounted archer. I think the proportion on that, or the proportion is the same actually as the spearmen. The spearmen and the mounted archer actually are the same proportionally in terms of their iron to lumber consumption, but the spearman uses less clay proportionally. But yeah, I mean, if you get a ton of these swordsmen, you're going to have to counter it with next queuing up spearmen and mounted archers as a counteraction. Another thing, okay, so I would say a good three unit combo would be the swordsman, and then you do a follow up with spearmen and mounted archers in order to come to a 0 across the board on resources, except for clay. Clay is a piece of shit. Also, here's the other combo: archers, axe fighters, and light cavalry, because the archers use up a lot of lumber. Let's see the lumber on this. Yeah, see 80 but it's to 60. So actually, I think spearmen even use up more lumber. I mean, but basically, maybe see light cavalry requires a lot of iron, but so do the sword fighters, and so you got to kind of pick or choose which one you want to take, because if you use all your iron on either one, you got to decide if you want to go a strong offensive or defensive route. And really, to get iron, I guess you can use the market, but quite frankly, everybody wants iron, and very few people give other resources. So, those are some things to think about in terms of your army and building your army. So, how about I do, instead of talking, and purchase some units? I'm just going to go, first of all, I'm actively playing and I'm missing something from the queue here. So I'm just going to select something that I want. My marketplace is still terrible, so maybe I'll just step that up. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is the best unit you can get are axe fighters as far as offense goes. And so that's what I'm going to stick with for now. You want to have kind of a diversified army, but axe fighters are definitely the bread and butter. So I'm gonna get half of them, and I'm gonna see how much do I have proportionally to each other. And actually, at this point, it looks like I'm gonna have enough resources to basically go all the way with this. And 161 to 18. See, that's basically a perfect spread that you want. I have some more clay now, but actually, this gives me, if enough units come back with enough resources, if you have a lot of clay, it gives you the potential to upgrade buildings, like the headquarters, and I guess also the barracks, I believe, needs a lot of clay as well, even more iron. But yeah, so you need to think about that. I'll just send some more waves out real quick. You gotta continuously do this. Whenever your units come back to the base, get rid of them. Sorry, I turned my speaker down a bit because I realized it probably like doubles the sound level when I record it with the speaker right there. So yeah, whenever your units come back to town, always get rid of them. Like send them away because they shouldn't be in the town. They should always be moving around and getting you money. And so it's actually an interesting conversation on what is more. What's more beneficial, investing in units such as spearmen, which can carry stuff back to your town, or upgrading the lumber mill and the iron mine and the clay pit? Because if you want to really talk about, oh shit, I just sent that to a player. One sec. If you really want to talk about overall efficiency, it's actually much more efficient early game to send out these waves of farmers than it is to upgrade the resources. I mean, of course you want both. You want as many resources produced at the base and also collected out here, but you need to consider the amount of time it takes to build your farm, so that way you don't get supply blocked. Because if you're consistently producing troops, the best for raiding like this are typically the axe fighters and spearmen. If you're doing this, it's actually better to upgrade your farm early game than it is to upgrade your resources too much. You just always want to make sure if you have an effective farming strategy like this will get you a lot more resources early game than it will to sit around and upgrade your farm. So, in so many words, basically, one more thing is I'm about to get into nobling very soon. And so what you got to do to noble is you have to get a level 20 headquarters and then you get the academy. However, the big problem is the 20 headquarters because I think to get to level 20, I think you have to pay like 80,000 or 100,000 of each resource. I don't know what it is. It's very high. So, in order for you to even do that or even consider that, you need to upgrade your warehouse super high. Like, I don't know what the exact level is. It's like 22, 23 that you need to get it to, or 24, before you can even afford to buy the headquarters. So you shouldn't even really be thinking too much about upgrading the headquarters at all. Mine's going to be level 12, but it doesn't matter until you get the warehouse to like level 23 or 24, because otherwise you're just not going to be able to afford it anyway. And if you're going to have a level 24 warehouse, you need to make sure that you have enough farming runs operating. Look, my farm is even higher because the only way I'm going to take in the number of resources required to fill a warehouse that size is if I have troops constantly running back and forth and getting me resources. And I've kind of tried to do my best, like, in between times where I'm not farm blocked. The only time you should really upgrade your resources at this point is when you are sure that the amount of time it takes to complete the resource place is not going to farm block you. Because if you because you always need to be upgrading the farm to meet the demand of the provisions that are being used by the units you're recruiting. But if you're upgrading all your resources all the time, and then therefore you're behind on the farm upgrades and you get locked on the provisions, that is something you never want to run into. So upgrading these resource mines, it's really, you should only do it when you're not going to get farm blocked, because if you're an active player, it is far more efficient to use farming using the presets rather than sitting around and waiting for these resources come in, because it takes too long and it's not worth it. So at least at this stage in the game. And so that's something to know when you're kind of developing your pre-noble stage.